Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and Andrew Foster here, keep you up to date all things National Football League. And if you want to stay in the know with the NFL, consider subscribing. We also got some other NHL stuff on the channel if that interests you as well. Today, Week 7 fantasy and betting preview. We're going to be doing some stardom, some sit-ems, and our best bets. The fellas are coming back on best bets, by the way. We are back. Um, but before we get into any of that, only one episode this week. Some scheduling issues, I guess. Thanksgiving weekend up here in Canada. So, but before we get into all of the fantasy stuff, let's just Glover, what are some of the biggest storylines you took away from week 6? Like, where do you can take any direction you want. The floor is open to both of you guys.
I'll let you take this story. I think you're gonna go with Andrew there. I'm gonna bring up the receivers, the AFC East. I mean, with the Bills and Jets acquiring Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper, it's gonna be really interesting. I think for the Bills is a big time move because they really did lack a receiver. One, Khalil Shakir just didn't fit into that role this year, and he's been dealing with a bit of a nagging injury, which hasn't helped things either. But really, they've had no receivers to create separation, no receivers to move the ball down the field. They get one or two plays every game. It'll be interesting to see how that offense changes with Amari Cooper. And I think it definitely will change for the better. With the Jets, though, on the other hand, they pick up the better receiver in Devontae Adams, but it's also they have a lot more issues than just receiver. And I don't know if this fixes their problems. I don't know if this makes them a playoff team. They're still maybe close enough in the race with the way things have shaped out the first 6 weeks, but they're in a rough spot.
See, Frosty, what do you think about these receivers going to these new places? Because I mean, I want to touch on the Jets and their playoff hopes because I was looking at the standings and honestly, the Jets like should have a walk into the playoffs. I don't see 7 teams better than the Jets right now.
They realistically, they should. I think the AFC is just really top heavy right now. I
Mhm.
think
Hmm.
that the four division winners are
Yep.
pretty much already set in stone in Buffalo, Baltimore, Houston, Kansas City. And after that, it's pretty much the best of the worst, it feels like at this point. Like, I think the Jets will make it in. I don't think this Devonta Adams trade makes them any better than they already were, though. I think they're still a team that's going to hover around 500. I don't think they're a team that can upset anybody in the first round. Maybe if somebody comes in with a lot of injuries, they can upset someone, but this doesn't move the needle for me on the Jets.
See, I mean, it's tough because like I like the acquisition, I really do.
Mhm.
I like Devontae Adams. It's just, yeah, man, they got a lot of other stuff going on, like you guys both mentioned. Pittsburgh this week, then at New England, then they're taking on Houston, then at Arizona, then versus Indy. So, bit of a tougher stretch of games, and then they also got Buffalo still again. So we'll see where they end up, but. I mean, I would like to think the next 3 after the division winners would be New York, Pittsburgh, and like Cincy. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. I think at this point, Cincy could come back all the way.
Well, right now, if the playoffs ended today or started today, it would go, yeah, Pittsburgh, Chargers,
The Chargers would be in.
Broncos.
Yeah.
Like those are the three wild card teams right now. And like Cincy and the Jets are only like a game back of the Broncos and Colts, but yeah, because the Colts actually were tied for the Broncos. So that like it's kind of a I don't like any of these teams. Since he started out slow, Miami's got the injuries. I think Miami will end up taking the one of those spots when Tua's back because I expected them to be dead in the water, but with how bad the rest of the AFC has been, the door is still wide open for Miami to come in when Tua comes back in week 8 and go into the playoffs again.
Well,
I,
Oh, go ahead, Frosty.
I was just gonna say, I like the Broncos more than I think some people do. I think they could have a top three defense in football, if not the best defense in football right now.
Hey, buddy,
I
I've
don't,
been banging the Denver drum on this podcast for a couple of weeks now.
you have been on the Denver train much longer than I have been. I'm still not confident in Bo Nix, but I
Yeah.
think they could on any given week, I think they could beat a team 3-0. Like this defense is that good that they can come out and stifle, I think, any offense in football right now.
This Thursday night game is going to be interesting because we'll see how this defense performs without Pat Surtain. Because
See,
I want to know how much of it is just Pat Surtain is locking in a whole side of the field, making the rest of their lives easy, or if the rest of this defense is actually able to hold their own.
I don't think we're gonna learn. I was thinking that, but I don't think we're gonna learn anything
Yeah, that's
because it's
true.
not the Saints' top three guys, Carr, Chris Olave, and Shaheed are all out as well.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
um, I, I I mean, I think Denver's gonna win tonight. I do. I think Knicks is getting better um, as time goes on. But let's move over to the NFC just real quick to recap things. Um, I think you could probably eliminate like two teams from playoff contention. Like in the AFC, you could probably cross off like a bit more, but like I don't see Carolina getting there, and I don't see the
Yeah.
Rams getting there. But like at this point, I mean, the NFC North looks like a gauntlet. It's the best division in football right now.
Yeah.
Um, I could see all four teams making the playoffs if the Bears keep it up. Because all of a sudden they're 4-2.
Yeah.
They're
I
on a
want to
4 game
see,
heater.
I want to
Right?
see what the Bears can do against a good team because they really have had a bit of a cupcake last couple of weeks. I mean, the three teams they've beaten all had one win. They beat the 1-4 Rams, the 1-5 Panthers, and the 1-5 Jaguars. Like the offense looks like it's getting better every time, and a guy like DeAndre Swift's playing well. The concerns are still there. I think it's just the O-line issues and the lack of certain areas, lack of the run game or whatever, has been as apparent because these defenses they're playing against just suck.
I will say, I still think the Bears defense is very good,
The
though.
Bears
The Bears
defense is very
defense is
good.
very good. I think
I
if Caleb Williams goes out, he doesn't have to win them football games now. I think he has to go out and just not lose football games. If
Yeah,
he goes out and puts 20 points on the board, they have a shot to win every night.
I'm interested to see how this offense will step up though when they play a good defense. The issue is that's not going to come for a while. Like the Bears are probably going to just get in off their schedule if they play Washington, which Washington will probably beat them, but it won't get a good look at the offense because
They
they're
got a
all
tough stretch
defense.
coming up here. I think you're about to
Washington,
mention.
Arizona, New England, then they run a gauntlet.
Yeah.
Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, San Fran, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay. They might not win a game in that stretch. That is an insane end of the season.
It's their division. They got all
Yeah.
the division games
All they
coming
haven't played
up.
a single divisional game yet. So they play every team in their division is also above 500 two more times this year, plus San Fran, plus Seattle. Like that's rough.
We'll see. We'll see. But they've gotten off to a
Yeah.
solid start, so they've put themselves in a position to give some grace for probably what's going to be 2 to 3 losses at least in there. Uh, yeah, just like NFC East is a mess. Dallas Cowboys getting blown out by the Detroit Lions last week. The Commies looking solid against the Ravens. Coming out with a loss though. Honestly, I don't know if two teams come out of the NFC East in the playoffs. I don't know if it's just the one. And I don't know which teams either. Like I could see Dallas or Philly cleaning up their messes by the time we get to the playoffs, and then Washington maybe falling out. But I don't know, Frosty, you're obviously the Cowboys guy here. What do you make of this NFC East?
Uh, so I still think the best team in this division is the Eagles, and I think this team is too good to have Nick Sirianni as a head coach. There is no reason why you're taunting fans after beating the Browns by 4 points.
Yeah.
Like he's an overgrown man-child on the sideline right now. He can't control his emotions. And it's trickling down to Jalen Hurts now, who was this like statue. He was like the ultimate leader, and now he's starting to falter in big moments now too. And Saquon's really been the saving grace of this offense so far. The defense is starting to look better with Vic Fangio back there now, but I still think Philly comes out and ends up winning this division, even if they finish like 10-7, 9-8, something like that. I think that might be enough.
I think the issue is Nick Sirianni's always been this man child. Like when they were winning, he was cocky and arrogant and, showboating on the sidelines and whatnot. The difference was he had two of the best coordinators in the league in Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon to make his lack of a system not apparent because those two were running things in the offensive defense. They had those things locked down and he was kind of just there. And now he's just there, and he's supposed to be the culture builder kind of guy.
What does he do?
Yeah, but the culture he's building sucks.
What is he doing there?
I don't know.
Doesn't call the offense, doesn't call the defense. He,
Exactly. And you look at a guy like again, I'm not John Harbaugh's biggest fan, but he doesn't call the defense, he doesn't call the offense, but he sets culture, he sets the way the team plays in place and hires people around him to follow that system that he set in place all those years ago. Nick Sure doesn't have that because he didn't set the system. His two coordinators that left him set the systems. And now the defenses and offenses look so much more out of whack without those coordinators.
Well, I guess we'll see where Philly goes. They got New York Giants this week. And man, I'm gonna be upset again. Like we got these garbage primetime games once again this week with just like great games sprinkled all
Yeah.
around. Like Texans and Packers are on at 1. That's a good one. Lions Vikings, which I wanted to get your guys' take on because I think a great matchup. It's gonna be cool to see Minnesota up against Detroit. I got Detroit all the way in this one. I don't know about you guys, but I think that blitz would like the way Brian Flores uses that defense would hurt a team who's pass heavy like a Houston or who they've been playing. Surprisingly, the 49ers have been passing quite a bit as well. They're one of the better passing teams, so it was effective against them. But against Detroit, they're fine with running the ball every single play with their two backs in that offensive line. So I'm interested. Where are you guys on the Vikings and just moving forward?
Well, I want to mention the Lions quickly first.
Yeah.
I want to see how this defense is where it's going to get scary for the Lions with Aiden Hutchinson out all season. I, I don't I don't know if I trust it enough because they're the reason they were able to get away with the lack of the secondary in that defense was because Aiden Hutchinson was just in the backfield. He was just you could rush four and he'd get in the backfield. You can't do that anymore. They don't have enough, and they already had Marcus Davenport go out for the year. They should definitely be in the market for one of those edge rushers like a Jadeveon Clowney, a Hassan Reddick, someone to just get them some support on the D line. Because really, without Aiden Hutchinson, this defense might fall flat. And that was their problem last year is when they got to the playoffs, they got the 49ers, got up big and the defense just sold. I don't trust this defense enough without Hutchinson to do enough against these good teams. We'll see against the Vikings. It'll be a good test.
I mean, they looked great defending the pass against a very pass heavy team in Dallas. Like Branch was making plays
France
all
looked
around
really
the
good.
field. I think Arnold's still coming around, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, I would love Frosty. I would love Max Crosby to be a Detroit Lion, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, yeah, what do you make of the Lions? You just got a first class ticket to watch them and their full powers. So, I mean, at this point, I have them coming out of the NFC still. I had it before the year and I still have it. So, I mean, is there really anybody to challenge that throne? People would say Minnesota, but
I still have the line. The Lions are still my Super Bowl pick. Without Aiden Hutchinson, I still have them winning the Super Bowl. I think they go out and make a big splash. I don't know if it's gonna be as big as Max Crosby. I would love for Max Crosby to be there because Max Crosby and Dan Campbell would be like a movie. But just they need some kind of pass rush help.
Mhm.
I fully expect them to trade for Hassan Reddick at this point. That's I think should be target number one for them. But what I think made their defense look so good against Dallas is the fact that they have a good enough front seven that they could drop everybody into coverage. They could rush four, and Dallas isn't going to run the ball on them. Their O-line got worse, the running back got worse. Dallas is probably the worst running team in football. Detroit just trusted their D line. If they rush four, they're still going to be able to stop the run. So they can have all seven guys in coverage for you're outnumbering the amount of receivers. And Brian Branch was just making like reads like I've never seen young players like that make before.
Yeah. I think the run defense will stay consistent without Aiden Hutchinson because he's a great run stopper. But the reason the run defense is so good is in the middle with Ali McNeil, DJ Reader, Levi Onwuzurike. So that I think the run defense will still be really, really solid. And they'll still be able to play a little more laid back and not have to blitz as much. The issue is going to be how much pressure can they get, and can the DBs hold up in situations where the quarterback has 5 seconds to throw the football. And I think in that situation, the way the Lions have been playing, they're more likely than not to take a penalty and to get a holding or to get a pass interference because the way their cornerbacks have been very, very grabby. They all are very, very hands-on cornerbacks, getting on the receiver. But when the receiver's running around, you're basically playing backyard football because the quarterback's gonna have so much time. They're so much more susceptible to the penalties they've already been taking.
yeah. We'll see. They got young guys who are still going to get better as time goes on. Like you would think Arnold's going to get better. Kirby Joseph now in year two, you would think he continue to get better. I think a lot's going to fall into these linebackers. I think Anzalone and Campbell are super solid. So, I mean, you again, young guy, you would think Campbell would continue to get better too. I think Anzalone just flies around. I'm going to be honest. I love Anzalone. Um, but yeah, Detroit. I mean, I don't think anybody's really challenging them quite yet. So I guess we'll see. But let's. I mean, anything else you guys want to bring up from week six, or are we ready to move on here? That was a nice little recap, eh?
Just,
Yeah. All
just
right.
betting.
All right. Start sit-ums for week seven. Let's start at running back, Frosty. How did we do last week?
Uh,
Were we all
All
we were all pretty
all
solid
our
except Frosty. You were
Yeah, it was a rough week. I still stand by two of my sits though. I Eckler beat it by point 0.8 and Sam Laporta had one catch on a
Yeah, that
trick
was
play
that was
flea
good.
flicker. That was a 50-yard touchdown. I I'll take the loss for them because I did get both them wrong, but I still stand by the sits.
Yeah.
fair enough. All right, 2-4 for you last week. Who you started at RB? Hey, you were right at the start for running back last week, and you've been actually pretty. You only have two misses for starting running backs all year, so you're pretty solid in this. Who are you bringing to the table?
I'm going to your guy from last week. I'm going to Tony Pollard against the Bills. I I think Tennessee's gonna try and run on the Bills early on in the game before they end up down by 30. And after they end up down by 30, I think Tony Pollard's gonna get a lot of checkdowns. And I think he's just gonna like he could get 6 receptions for 2 yards, but Will Levis is gonna have to throw to him, or whoever they end up starting at quarterback is gonna have to throw to Tony Pollard. The only thing that scares me is Calvin Ridley throwing a little hissy fit at the end after 0 catches on 8 targets. Um, so I
Okay,
think they
no,
might
wait,
just
hold on. To defend Calvin Ridley, I don't know if you guys saw what the targets look like. It
Well,
was
yeah, but you willingly signed in Tennessee, knowing Will Levis was your quarterback. You signed up for this. Have fun. Good luck. Like that's on you, man. I don't care. I don't have any sympathy for that.
there was
okay.
teams in the market. The Kansas City Chiefs traded for Hollywood Brown. He could have signed in Kansas
You,
City instead and had Patrick Mahomes
yeah.
throwing him the ball, but he wanted the Mayo merchant instead.
I think like Devontae Adams has the right to complain because he chose to go to Las Vegas when Derek Carr was there. Then he got stuck in quarterback turmoil. Calvin really willingly knew Will Levis was going to be throwing the football this year and was like, "Yeah, that's where I want to play. I want to play in Tennessee." That's all you, Bucko. Have fun.
Fair enough, fair enough. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much better Mahomes been than the Mayo merchant this
I
year, but
mean, not much, but he's still the MVP favorite, even after last week.
we'll see what meme comes out this week. Wait,
I
speaking
can't
of
wait.
week six, I don't know if you guys saw on Red Zone or if you guys were watching just the Titans game itself. I don't know why you'd be doing that. But Levis absolutely
Oh, yeah.
destroyed this guy on the sidelines. I,
Oh,
as
man.
somebody who's torn his ACL, hands on head watching that, like, oh my, he didn't even care either. He didn't even check up on him.
No.
Levis just like stood up and started running back to the huddle. It was,
He was making up for his bye week last week. He had two meme-worthy moments because he took out the guy's knee, and then the Spider-Man
oh yeah,
celebration was
the Spider-Man
hilarious.
too.
But Jesus, man, this guy is. That's the one benefit to him playing football is, man, you know you're getting a meme a week. It's amazing.
He like, you think he's aware? He
He's
probably
got,
is
He has to
aware.
be. He
he's
has
gotta
to be.
be.
Yeah,
Like,
I think these guys are more aware than maybe they let on
yeah.
or whatnot. All right, well, Frosty's starting Pollard until they go down by 30, but and then he should still be all right. Glover, who are you starting?
I'm gonna start Devon Achan a week before Tua gets back. I think it's just a good matchup playing the Colts defense, which has just been really bad, especially against the run all year. And coming off the bye week, I think Miami's going to be in a position where they're a little more well-rounded on offense. I think they're going to be a little more comfortable with Tyler Huntley behind center, and I think he'll be more comfortable in that offense. And I think just all that level of comfort is going to open up those running lanes for Devon Achan, and I think they want to get him more involved. I think after this week, though, whether he hits or this week or not, he's going to be elite again after when Tua comes back. It's just a matter of can they get it going this week, and I think this is a good matchup for it.
I was just gonna say, Frosty, is this a starting at Achan?
I mean, if we pull up his game log, like I can pull it up, but it is bad. I
This,
mean, we're looking
this is
at
a second round
he
pick.
hasn't
I
hit
was
over
he's
10
been
points since
he's
Tua got
been
out.
bad.
He hasn't with Tua out.
Yeah,
His game log is 8.8 points, 5.9 points, and 2.7 points.
I
I'll
hear you.
I'll let it go because I had Etienne as a start 2 weeks ago, who was also a
Yeah.
second round pick.
Like we're looking at I think at this point, like at the start of the year, we're looking at where they were drafted. At this point, we're looking at what they've done. Like
Yeah.
ETN was a second round pick, but God, he is terrible. Like that's that we're at that point in the season.
All right, we'll allow it. It's just like I went with Tyrone Tracy, so you get to go Devon Achane. I have to go Tyrone Tracy.
That's
Um,
you made that choice. See, you got two injuries last week, so you
no, I
got a
didn't.
negative point 0.5 and a 0
Yeah,
point
they
on
got
your
hurt
on your
in the
start
game.
list.
I can't control that. I can control if I'm starting guys who are literally banged up coming into the week and are expected not to play, and then we start them, or sit them, whatever. No, Tyrone Tracy. I thought about Tony Pollard. I ended up going with Tracy just because I went Pollard last week. Um, if Singletary's playing, then
Yeah,
I'm like scared. But I'm just gonna hope and pray that Singletary's out, as like messed up as that sounds. Uh, Tracy wasn't crazy against Cincy, but he got the touches and he was really good the first week he played. So I think he's going to get volume. If he finds the end zone against a middling Philly team against the run, then it's good. I struggled with this, to be honest. I didn't really know what other running backs to put in. So I thought about Paul. It was between Pollard and Tracy. I just went with Tracy because I like what I've seen so far.
I think he's really carved out a role for himself in this offense. And the biggest thing from especially in fantasy is he's going to be getting catches, a lot of receptions because this guy was a receiver in college who
Yeah.
converted to running back. They were lining him up out wide and hitting him with quick routes, like 6 targets, 6 catches, 57 yards. That's where his fantasy production came from last week.
Yeah, I should have said he wasn't as good in the run, but yeah,
Yeah,
you're
like
right.
he wasn't as good on the ground last week, but he still had some really explosive runs. It was more so teams a little bit more aware of it, and the Bengals are pretty solid run stoppers. But yeah, it was like he had some pretty big runs, which is a lot of also short term runs, a lot of goal line runs. But yeah, I do like Tracy, and as someone who managed to snag him up when Singletary was out, I'm really hoping he can carve out a long term role with Singletary even in the lineup.
Yeah, I also think the Bengals offense is going to kind of run through this Giants defense a little bit.
Was last
Um,
week.
oh my God,
I
you're
think he meant
right.
to say Philly.
Yeah, this Philly offense is going to run through the
Yeah.
Giants defense a little bit this week. If they're like forced to pass the ball, Tracy should be on the field over Singletary, even if Singletary's back
Mhm.
anyways. He's a
Yep.
much better receiving back than Singletary is. So I'm honestly not even terribly worried if Singletary is back. I think Tracy has enough of a role that it's reasonable to start him.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. You guys are making me feel better. Saying he's a much better receiving back than Singletary is high praise because I think Singletary was really solid in the past game. It's because Tracy literally was a receiver.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think they were saying on the broadcast he converted to RB in his senior year of
Uh-huh.
college. So just outside of fantasy, just long term with him, like I mean, you're looking at a guy who if he just continues to develop and at the running back position, running the football, then they might have found something here in New York.
Like again, the numbers don't show, but watching him running that Cincy game, he looked really good. They brought it up a lot. He was really good at cutting back and finding open lanes and just taking his time in the backfield before just jumping into the pile. Seeing the field, seeing the hole, and getting through it quickly. He was really, really good at making sure he got to the second level quickly.
All right, cool. Well, Glover, who you not thinking for this week? Who do you not think is gonna be patient in the hole, getting you all these fantasy points? Who you
My
sitting?
my sit this week is gonna be Nick Chubb. I think it's bold.
He hasn't played.
Well, yeah, he's gonna play this week.
I
He's
know, but
playing this week.
you got some suspect start sits, but that's fine. Hey, you got to come back somehow. It's okay.
Hey, I'm gonna say with Jerome Ford out, the expectation is gonna be that Nick Chubb just grabs a bunch of carries. I don't think it's gonna be the case. I think they're gonna, ease him in. It also they're gonna get blown out by the Cincy team and they won't be able to run the ball. So I don't see a good matchup. I don't see a good situation. I think it also is going to take Nick Chubb time to ramp up. You're not going to be getting an immediate impact guy like the first time he's back in the lineup. It'll take a good 2 to 3 weeks for him to fully ramp up to Nick Chubb's speed, I think.
Just for the numbers say you're sitting the number 503 running back. So
To be
that's
fair, you guys are sitting Tony Pollard, starting Tony Pollard, who's been really good this year.
I started Pollard last week. I feel like I
He
could
was
get away
really
with
good.
that.
He only has one game below 10 points this year. He's been really good.
He's RB 19 now.
Yeah.
So
And he's had his bye already. RB
yeah.
19 with his bye.
Yeah, but he's not like a top like 12 RB.
I think by points per game he probably is.
Eh,
I like that's all I'm saying. I'm getting
all
slapped
right, all
starts and
right,
Tony Pollard's pretty like,
all
easy.
right, all right.
I'm not gonna lie, Nick Chubb was my sit as well, but I came with a backup one
I
I mean,
prefer
because
that
honestly,
one.
it's sure. I mean, maybe I'm just being a bit of a stick in the mud, but go with Nick Chubb. That's fine. That's cool.
so I am Nick
I
Chubb
don't
is my
care.
sit, but
Yeah, I
because
don't
I'm
care.
not sure if he's gonna play, if he doesn't play, then I'm sitting Javonte Williams against the Saints. That's
Okay.
that's that's my backup pick. I came prepared
See, I
this time.
respect that. Yeah, because I've been giving you the fucking breaks.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been busting your balls all year on this.
It's happened like 4 times already this year that I've started somebody or sat somebody that it's like, oh, they're supposed to play, they're looking towards playing, and then 30 minutes before game time, yeah, they're out. It's like, okay, sick.
I if we want to get like I do have a backup in case just in case. I'll sit James Conner if Nick Chubb's out because that was my
Oh
second.
wow, okay. Explain that. Do you have like some reasoning for that?
I just don't like the matchup against the Chargers. The Chargers defense has been really good, especially against the run. Their pass rush has been amazing. I just don't think it's a great matchup for or for James Conner. And I think especially if Marvin Harrison Jr. is out, which he should be with the concussion, it's going to be a very heavy focus on the run game because the pass game won't really scare the Chargers. And they've got a really good defense this year. They've been an underrated team. I think it's just gonna be a rough game for James Conner.
All right, well, since you guys want to be pansies and sit Nick Chubb, I'm sitting Josh Jacobs. Okay. I'm starting Tyrone Tracy and I'm sitting Josh Jacobs. Houston's gonna swallow him up. He's gonna get eaten alive. Uh the Texans are allowing the eighth fewest rushing yards and fantasy points to RBs. His snap percentage is so concerning, man. Like Emmanuel Wilson is out there a little too much for my liking. I'm gonna be honest. Like uh
Leave me
75
alone.
75% is the highest snap percentage Jacobs has seen, and that was once. He's honestly around 60% for the most part. Can't find the end zone, whether that's just like a scheme thing or it's just him. I mean, he's had a fumble on the goal line as well this year. Uh, he's very inefficient lately. 3 out of the last 4 games, he's been under 4 yards per carry. So I think that's part of the reason. And also, Houston's getting Danico Autry back, who was great for the Titans last year. He's back off a PED suspension now. So the D line just gets even stronger. That's already been one of the best. Sitting him.
Yeah, I see. I saw some because I'm a Nick Chubb fantasy owner, so I've been or a Josh Jacobs fantasy owner, so I've been making trying to figure out what the hell's going on with this guy, and he's had like a lot of touchdowns called back due to penalties, and he just hasn't got a break. Like he's been an amazing running back in football. Like, he's actually been like he's had really good numbers just a pure running the ball for your team in real life football, but with no touchdowns, no receiving work, the fantasy aspect's kind of questionable.
Yeah, like Frosty, it seems like they're just passing it a lot in the red zone. Like Love, when he plays, he has 2 games with 4 passing touchdowns, 2 games with 2 passing touchdowns. It's either he's finding one of his speedy guys, or they're making a play for a big deep play, and they're scoring that way with the likes of Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, or they get into the red zone and like all those guys have just like Kraft is a big target you can go to. It just seems like they're not running it on the goal line, and when they do, he's getting stopped. So.
Yeah, Green Bay just has so many options in the receiving game. Romeo Dobbs is basically like a tight end receiver hybrid.
Yeah.
He's like 6'4". Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave are both viable red zone targets. And then you have, if you're out past the 10, you have like Jaden Reed end arounds that they seems like they've been running that and running receivers more than they've been running Josh Jacobs in the red zone at this point.
Or Emmanuel Wilson is just on the field.
Yeah,
So it's
yes. Like
there's
The other thing is,
lo-
I think Marshawn Lloyd's going to come back this week too. That'll be another interesting thing to see how his snap share looks.
all right, all right. I feel good. I feel good. You guys are making me feel good. I like it. All right. Wide receiver time. Frosty, who you starting?
so I think this is fine as a start. I have a second one. My start's Lad McConkey against Arizona.
Oh, that's
I don't
fine.
think he's up there too far yet to make him like a an obvious start. Um, I I could see the Chargers getting stuffed in the run a little bit. I think eventually teams are just gonna go, we're not gonna let you beat us on the run. They're gonna stack 7 players in the box on every play and force them to throw the ball. And Lad McConkey looks like he's carved himself out to be the clear number one in this offense. Quentin Johnston had his like 2 weeks where he was ridiculously good for no reason. And now Lad McConkey's become what we've expected him to be in the Chargers offense. He's getting separation continually every single time he comes off the line, and he's become Justin Herbert's favorite target.
Yeah. I think he's easily the best receiver on that team right now. The issue is just, it's so run heavy that his workload isn't quite there. But like he had 8 targets last week, again, in a run heavy game where they ran Dobbins for a career high like 24 times.
And he
So
missed time in that game too. He went back to
yeah,
the
like
locker room for a while.
I really do like Lad. The rest of the season is going to start to turn up, and I think yeah, if teams adjust as you said to the run game and start to force them to throw the ball, Lad McConkey is going to be a great fantasy option going forward.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, coming into the year, it was all everybody loved Lad, and then people were getting scared of Lad. I know Glover, you specifically were worried because yeah, like you said, Frosty Quentin Johnson was on his insanity run there. Um, things have gone back to normal though. We're outside. We're back out of the what is it in Stranger Things? The upside down or the whatever it's called. Ever seen Stranger Things?
No, I haven't.
What
Really?
the heck?
Yeah, it's more than I
Wiles, have
haven't
you
got.
seen it?
Yeah, it's been a while though, and I haven't watched the
Okay.
full thing. I'm like, I think like 2 seasons behind at this point.
You gotta watch it. It's really
Demigorgons and
good.
all that.
Real good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, Glover, I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
Yeah,
If anything. All right.
it is up my
Uh,
alley. I just never gotten to it.
who are you starting?
My start at receiver this week is gonna be Demario Douglas. I think with Drake May looked wow. Like I was pleasantly surprised with how he looked against the Texans, and Douglas looked like his favorite target. He was really, really good last week. He's really been better these past few weeks after a rough start to the year. 9 targets, 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. I think Demario Douglas is a guy who's going to be a bit of a if Drake May keeps this up, could be a guy who's a playoff kind of stud because of the way that the Patriots have been running this offense. He looked really good with Drake May in the fold, and it's a pretty easy matchup this week for the Patriots. It's not really as tough as a Houston. They're playing Jacksonville, who we know how their secondary's been all year. I think odds are Drake May could exploit that. I mean, he had 2 picks last week, but he also had 3 touchdowns and had one of the best. Like he probably was the rookie quarterback who looked the best in their debut of any of them. He looked better than Caleb Williams did week one, Bo Nix did week one, Jane Daniels even week one. And he looked really, really good. He had the turnovers, which is problematic, but when you're throwing the ball that much, it's going to happen. And I really like what I've seen from Drake May. So, and it works well for Mario Douglas.
I started Mario Douglas as well. Got a close-up look at this Patriots offense in Drake May's debut. I was beating the drum of let's just throw the kid in. Like, please, let's just see what he is. He's better than Jacoby Brissett,
Yeah.
clearly. We all knew this. 3 passing touchdowns for him in this game. Brissett's had 2 all year. That should be all you need to know. Yeah, Demario Douglas was great last week. Led the team with targets, 9. That's the third time he's had 9 targets this season. He just creates separation, man. He's just fast, and they'll get him on all these like little slants, and he'll just the speed with on him is crazy. It kind of catches you off guard, and then all of a sudden he just finds this other gear, and he's moving away. And Jacksonville has the worst pass defense in the league. It's
Yeah.
not even close. It's them in Baltimore. At least Baltimore can
Can
defend
stop
the
the
run,
run.
and that's why they're
Yeah.
getting passed on. Jacksonville is just bad. They allowed the second most fantasy points and receiving yards per game to wideouts. And yeah, he's just a yak monster. So I think Douglas is my start. He was solid even with Brissett in. So he really found the stride with May and yeah, May looked pretty solid. I'm not gonna lie. I one of the picks was fluky, like big time fluke. His first pick was really bad. It completely overthrew. I forget the receiver, but second one was like I don't know if you guys saw it. The Texans guy like caught it basically on the uh like, receiver was in front of the Texas DB was behind him, caught it around the receiver and like pinned it against his like shoulder pad basically. He did the Giants receiver from the Super Bowl basically. Kind of similar to that. I forget his name. I don't know why it's
Uh,
escaping me right now. It shouldn't be escaping me.
the
I can't
helmet
remember.
catch. Why am I blanking?
David
David
Tyree.
Tyree. David
Yeah,
Tyree.
Tyree. So it was similar to that, but yeah, Drake May, he looks solid. Should look a lot better against Jacksonville
Yeah.
too. So
I will say Demario Douglas was the guy that I was thinking of. I was going back and forth between him and Ladd. And I'm glad you brought up his target share, even with Jacoby Brissett, because this guy's been getting targets all year long. He just
Mm.
didn't have anybody throwing them to him. Now that Drake May's in, he's already got as many touchdowns as Brissett had all year in one game. So the volume's there, and now he has got a guy that's actually going to put the ball in a catchable spot for him. Douglas could be a really sneaky wide receiver for the rest of the season.
hey, and they're gonna be down and he gets open. So
Yeah.
we're at six for wide receiver, I believe now. So who wants to go first? Frosty? You want to go first?
You guys can tell me. I don't know if this guy's been bad enough that he's just like a weekly sit, but I'm sitting Brandon Ayuk against Kansas City.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Um, he's just been terrible. Like he had the one breakout game, and it was like he looks like himself now. It was like 8 catches for 140 yards. He looked like last season's Brandon Ayuk. He was explosive, and then last week he's fourth on the team in targets again. Like it's I don't think it's worth the risk at this point. There's too many mouths to feed. George Kittle looks like a animal right now, especially in the red zone, so he's not going to get very many end zone targets. I don't see the upside in Brandon Ayuk, especially against this defense.
I think the only Niners weapon you should just be holding on to and not just selling high every time they have a good game is George Kittle. He's the only consistent one who always gets targets no matter the game plan, no matter the team. He always gets targets, he gets red zone targets, he gets touchdowns. He's consistent. He's been an amazing tight end this year. But like Debo's up and down. If Debo's a good game, I'd trade him. Ayuk, same sort of thing. Like these guys are got to be like as sell high options because they're so inconsistent with just the production, with the way they're used, because there's so many mouths to feed that offense. And I mean, if you've got Jordan Mason, I'd look to trade him before CMC gets back. If you're someone who's holding CMC, you're now 0 and 4 or 0 and 6, 2 and 4, trade him. I think Kittle's the only one I'd hold on this team at this point in the year.
Yeah, that's all fair. I completely agree. I think I said Ayuk at some point this season. So
I think Ayuk's been a pretty regular
Yeah.
occurrence for our receiver sits.
It
yeah.
was that game was priceless because I was at a bar with a couple of my buddies and we're in a fantasy league and one of them had Ayuk and one of them had DK Metcalf. And apparently been going back and forth for weeks about which one's better. And they were both just terrible in that game. And it was hilarious. It was so funny.
Well, actually, I sat Ayuk 2 weeks ago, and that was the game he had
Yeah.
22 points, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
all right. Frosty, who are you sitting?
Mm.
Or who are you sitting?
I'm sitting Amari Cooper. I think it's easy to get lost in the new receiver with Josh Allen. I wouldn't just jump at the shot that's going to be an instant like amazing fit. It will be, but again, these guys are going to take time to adjust the offense. He's not going to fit in so seamlessly. It's a complicated sport, so you're not just going to be in there. It's not the same playbook. It's not the same system, not the same scheme. You got to learn all this, and it's going to take some time to improve and develop upon that. And it's a tough matchup against the Tennessee Titans. They've been a really good defense this year, just in general. It's the main reason they've been winning any football games, which they haven't been winning many, but it's the reason they're in competitive football games. They've been one of the best teams against the pass, the second best team against fantasy wide receivers in football this year. So really, it's not a good matchup. Along with the fact that it's a brand new team, I don't think it's going to be an instant plug and play.
I do think it could be a bit of a slow start for him. I mean,
Yeah,
Alan, I think it'll depend a lot on the health of everybody around him. Because if it's just him and Keon Coleman or him and Mac Hollins that's out there as receivers, and I think he'll get force fed the ball regardless of if he's like properly integrated in the offense or not. But if Buffalo can get some guys healthy before this game, I could see Amari getting kind of lost just because he hasn't had a ton of time to get used to the system yet.
hmm
Uh, I'm going to sit Michael Pittman versus the Dolphins. Miami is allowing the fourth fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers, and they're also top 10 in receiving yards allowed and touchdowns allowed to wide receivers as well. Uh, Guys have emerged around him. Josh Downs had a good game last week. Alec Pierce is just this a bit of boom or bust, but I mean, if he booms, then he booms.
yeah,
Uh, and then AD Mitchell is still there, so we'll see what happens at QB. I think it looks like Richardson is going to
yeah,
start, which I almost don't even like. It makes me not like it even more. And Pittman wasn't good with him. Averaged 6 points per game with Richardson in the lineup. So yeah, I'm sitting Michael Pittman there. Especially if Richardson is in there. Game styles don't really pair well with each other right now. That's why you see like an Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, and AD Mitchell honestly get more value than Pittman with Richardson in. So
I,
uh, yeah, Pittman out.
it's so tough because as a fan of Anthony Richardson's potential, I want to see him play. But as someone who owns Colts fantasy wide receivers, it's so much better to have Joe Flacco in. Like it's so much better. I think this will be the first game though where both Josh Downs and Anderson come in healthy. So I'll be interested to see how they mesh together because we've seen Pittman just doesn't click. I'm hoping Downs has a better outlook with Richardson starting, just because you got to have a balance in this offense. And if the pass game's totally useless, totally irrelevant, the run game's gonna get stuffed, and it's a bad recipe for all sides of this offense.
Yeah, it's especially scary with with AR coming back. They just can't get on the same page ever. AR only wants to air the ball out, and that's not Pittman's game. They have other guys that do that better than him, and AR just refuses to take the underneath like 5, 10 yard passes, where that's where Pittman's routinely getting open. So
It's also worth noting Pittman's dealing with that nagging back injury that he's somehow playing through. That was the weirdest. Like he was injured, went to week to probably an IR candidate might be done for quite a while to he's playing through it. I don't know how you go from IR candidate to playing through a back injury, but he did, and he was actually pretty solid last week. But yeah, it's I don't think it's going to mesh so well with A Rich because I don't think he's going to be able to make those kinds of plays that he likes.
It appears that he is going to play in week 7,
Yeah.
so I'm taking that. The I definitely I should have a backup. Maybe I'll have to tell you guys a backup at a later date if he ends up not playing. All right, tight ends. Frosty, who are you going with at tight end? Who are you starting?
I'm starting David Njoku. I think he's just going to be a target monster without Amari Cooper there. I think he could see like 12 targets this game. I think Cincinnati could get up big early in this game. I like Cincinnati's offense a lot. Jamar Chase has looked crazy, and if they're going to have to pass the ball, it's Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. And I like David Njoku's going to get a ton of targets this game. The volume will be there. He's just got to get catchable balls, and I think he will.
Glover, I'll jump in because I'm starting David and Joku as well. Yeah, wasn't on the snap count last week. Frosty played 75%, saw 7 targets. With Amari traded now, should see an uptick in production since he's allowing the second most touchdowns and the fifth most fantasy points per game to tight ends. So we know he has talent. It's just been kind of a rough year for him and just a rough year for the Browns in general. But um, I think I think he'll be all right.
I do like David Njoku. We'll see if I mean with the way this guy's been playing this year, this shouldn't be a crazy start. I'm going to start Mark Andrews this week against the Bucks. I think they're finally working him back into the offense this week. He looked a little bit better, and the Ravens have torched the Bucks in the past with tight end use. The Bucks defense has not been that good against tight ends this year in general. And I think, yeah, I think the offense is really starting to click in the passing game. It's with the way they've been running the schemes, they're getting healthy. The O-line getting better has really helped the offense run smoother in the pass game. And it's opened up lanes for Mark Andrews. And, the other big thing is with Mark Andrews no longer being the focal point, which whether he was playing bad or not through the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks, he was still being bracketed. He was still being double covered because teams were still afraid of him. But with the way Zay Flowers has been playing, teams can't afford to be double covering Mark Andrews anymore. Zay Flowers is the new number one guy. It leaves areas of the field open for Mark Andrews to exploit. I could see Andrews having a good week, though. I could also see it that just this is an Isaiah Likely week and Andrews isn't playable, but that's sort of the risk with playing Ravens tight ends this season.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, after week one, it was like likely, 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 and then he's been honestly, they've both been pretty quiet. So,
Yeah.
uh, all right, Frosty, who are you going with?
For my sit, I'm going Pat Fryermuth
Wow,
against the Jets defense. I just Justin Fields still doesn't target the middle of the field. Fryermuth doesn't he doesn't see a ton of volume. I don't love the matchup. He only had 2 catches on 3 targets for 16 yards last week. Like that was his low 3.6 fantasy points for this season, but I just don't trust Freiermuth at all.
Frosty, we're together on the tight ends. I'm sitting Pat Freiermuth as well.
Oh.
Uh, yeah, great linebackers there in New York. Jets are top 10 in fantasy points and receiving yards allowed. Russell Wilson is coming in. Offense is a mess. I don't know what's going on. Uh, in general, Darnell Washington could low key start eating in more. He saw a season high snap percentage last week at 74%. So, and he's been on the field quite a bit. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what I mean, maybe just with Russell Wilson, things change now, but Danger Russ is back.
So do you guys agree with starting Russell Wilson over Justin Fields right now?
I, I like. I'm not Justin Fields' like biggest supporter, and I don't like the Steelers, but I don't get it. I don't know what Justin Fields did to deserve being sat. Like he's been playing like he hasn't been like winning games and playing out of his mind. But are you really expecting that from Russell Wilson? Like
Like
you're
Fields 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 led you to a 4-2 record, 10 total touchdowns and 1 interception.
yeah, and you're sitting there like that's not good enough. Let's start the 35-year-old washed up Russell Wilson who's done nothing the past 3 years. I'll double check I'll put the stats right now, but I saw something crazy about the amount of picks he's been throwing lately. I think he's on like a streak where he hasn't gone a stretch of games of throwing like 2 interceptions or whatever it is in when he was playing in Denver. He was just constantly turning the ball over, and that's the one thing that you could rely on for Fields this year. Whether he's going to blow you up on the stat sheet or not, he wasn't turning the ball over. And if your defense is fresh coming every time, that defense is going to run over any offense. So I don't see the benefit. I don't see any real benefit to bringing in Russell Wilson at this point.
Okay. It's just it's such a hard conversation, but uh I believe now I think it's still he's 2 and 28 when his defense gives up more than 20 points. 2 and 28.
But
20
he's
points.
but he's 4-2 in Pittsburgh. So I don't care because the defense isn't giving out that many points. So Fields is enough. Who knows if Russell Wilson will even do that much?
I don't know, so why not see?
I think the big thing for me is I was an advocate to start Fields in the get-go because, if he sucks, which he hasn't, then you can turn to Russ, not the end of the world. But Fields is 25. If you can find something there, you can get yourself out of QB purgatory. There's still a shot for Fields to be a long-term option for a team like a Sam Darnold has been for Minnesota. One of those guys who revitalizes himself in a new environment. And Fields just brings an element of
He just can't
unpredictability.
pass, man. He can't pass.
But he's
Like,
passed well enough. He's done enough against
not
them.
really.
They're
Like,
winning games though. If you're losing games, again, but the other thing is what he brings with his legs is so dynamic to this offense that it makes them so much more difficult to play against. It also doesn't help that he has no weapons. Like you can bring up that he can't pass or whatever, George Pickens is playing lazy football, not even trying half the time he's on the field. And besides that, what are his options? Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, like we're looking at Scotty Miller. I what's he supposed to do? Like Van Jefferson, I watched the Steelers play like the Cowboys game, the primetime game. Nobody was ever open. He was throwing the ball to them. It would be in an area where they could catch it, and they're just locked up because nobody could get any separation or run any routes on this offense.
That
I will
that's yeah.
I, I will say I think Wilson gives them a better chance to win week in, week out. But I also don't think Justin Fields has done anything to deserve being benched yet.
Hmm.
So I can see why they did it because if you were going into the season saying Wilson will be our week one starter, then I
Yes.
understand why you're immediately giving him the shot once he's back healthy.
Yeah.
But I think he should have a pretty short leash.
I think the other thing that is going to be important is if the receivers can't get open like they haven't been getting open all year, if George Pickens is playing lazy and the rest of the receivers just can't break through, Russell Wilson is going to give you the ability to play out of system to run around and like he doesn't run like that anymore. He can't escape the pocket and gain 5 to 10 yards with his legs anymore. Fields, if there's no pass there, he can break out of the pocket and create something just on his own. And that's been able to give their offense a little bit more life, a little bit more to it than what you're going to have with Russell Wilson.
All right. Glover, I guess you haven't said your sit yet either.
Yeah.
So who you sitting?
My sit this week is going to be Tucker Kraft against the Houston Texans. I think it's a matter of, it's the mouths to feed in Green Bay, and I think with the way the Houston defense has been this year, I think they're better off looking to the receivers. Houston's linebackers been really good against the pass this year. You've been talking up Aziz Al-Shahir all year, and he's been really good all season long. I think it's gonna be hard to work that middle of the field for the Packers. They're gonna be looking to just throw it deep and try and capitalize on some young safeties and try and make some plays. Looking at like a good Jaden Reed play, a big Christian Watson play, that kind of thing. And with the if Wicks plays, you have all four of those receivers coming in healthy with a week of playing time. It's just a lot of mouths to feed. I don't see a lot of these guys being productive long term or consistently.
Yeah, the Packers passing attack is like you should throw a dart at a dartboard and whatever number it lands on, that's the guy's jersey number that you picked to
Yeah,
start this week. Like it's just you have no idea where the ball's going to go at any given point because they have so many options.
yeah.
Hey, I'm not gonna refute you sitting somebody who's about to play the Texans. I think it's a good call. And honestly, that brings us towards our best bet segment where we're back.
You're sitting Freiermuth too.
Yes.
I
Was
missed
that?
that. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sitting Frymouth as well. Me and Frosty are
Right. You're riding the tight ends.
yeah, we're riding them. Yeah, best bets. So Houston, just real quick while we're on Houston, I want to. They're plus 2.5 against the Packers. I'm honestly kind of surprised the Packers are favored. Um, I thought about going with Houston. Third time's a charm. They've not been nice to me the two times I bet on them. But I don't know where were you guys feeling? You guys set in stone? Like, did you guys have like one where you're just like, yes?
Not this.
That's why I'm interested to hear what you guys think. I think there's lots of options. Minnesota favored against Detroit.
Yeah, but it's a pick 'em. It's a 1.5. I don't like. It's a pick 'em. I don't think you're really like. I don't know. I don't know.
It's
It's
just
tough.
interesting.
The
Like,
one I was looking at was the Seahawks Falcons at 51 and a half. I like both of those defenses. I I could see the under hitting there, but I could also see Geno Smith and Kirk Cousins going shot for shot and just putting up like 45 to 43 this game. Like I don't think looking through it, I don't have anything that I'm like confident in right now.
yeah,
Do we
there's
think
not a lot.
Tennessee Buffalo over 41.5? Like, I'm
That
not sure how many points Tennessee is going to put up.
That's the thing. I think that lands on Buffalo getting 35 points. And against the Tennessee defense, which has been pretty good this year, I just don't see it. I think it would be too one-sided.
Maybe.
it's a tough week. There's not a lot of like lock matchups, a lot of toss-ups this week, a lot of there's not a lot of great just like odds I'm looking at here.
Some of the biggest favorites of the week, the Washington Commanders -8.5 against the Carolina Panthers. Just fade the Panthers and follow them around. Also, I believe the next biggest one is, yeah, the Bills 8.5 against the Titans as well. So maybe if you like the over and you think Buffalo's going to put up a bunch of points, then I guess you could maybe parlay that with the spread cover. All right, where did you guys end up going, Frosty? Where did you end up? Best bet. We are both 2-4 now, which might not seem like crazy, but we started off 0-4,
Yeah.
0 for. So we're 2 game heater, 2 week heater. Where are you going?
I'm gonna go Jacksonville, New England over 41.5. I don't like either one of those defenses, to be completely honest with you. Drake May, I like Houston's defense a lot more than I like Jacksonville's. And Drake
Yeah.
May threw 3 touchdowns against Houston. So I think this game could be high scoring. Jacksonville receivers also dropped 6 touchdowns last week or 4 touchdowns last week, something like that. Like it was they could have both put up a lot of points. I think they can this week because I don't like either one of their defenses, and I think this could be the week where Jacksonville's receivers start to click with Trevor Lawrence and maybe they put some points on the board.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that was the best Trevor Lawrence has looked sort of all year. Uh, I'm gonna go. I was talking about going with it last week. I thought about taking Ravens -3.5. I talked about their over last week against the Commanders, and it hit by 2 points. I'm gonna be taking the over again with against the Bucks. I think Ravens Bucks taking the over at 49.5 points. I think you look at it, you just need 25 each is really the way I like to look at those. And I think both these offenses have been really explosive. I think Chris Godwin could have a day working the underneath stuff. I hope it'll be interesting to work it because I think Marlon Humphrey's going to get the Mike Evans matchup because he's the more physical cornerback and he's been pretty solid this year. But the Chris Godwin could get open. The way it's been looking for the Ravens is Brandon Stevens. The way he plays is he's very grabby, he's very tight, and he stays tight on coverage, but he doesn't turn his head around. He stands there and he gets up to the coverage and it forces a tight throw, but he never turns around. So the receiver has he knows where the ball is, and the Rams never knows where the ball is. He's just putting his hands up and hoping. Even though he's in the right position, he's not making the right play on the ball. And I think Chris Godwin could capitalize on that and make some big plays out of it, similar to how Terry McLaurin did last week. I think it's just going to be a pass heavy game, just like the Commanders Ravens was last week, and lots of points to go around.
All right, all right. Well, I want to get your guys' opinion. I want your help. Uh, I'm between three. Okay, I'm between three. So help me make the decision, and then that should be good for the podcast here. I mentioned the Lions, +1.5 against the Vikings. I was kind of making the case for them when we were recapping week 6 for this week. I like the matchup. Option two, uh, I think the Rams 6.5 over the Raiders is kind of crazy. I don't know what the Rams have really shown this year. Kind of tough to bet on the Raiders to
Yeah.
cover, but I I don't like the line there. I think they're getting a lot of points. And third one, honestly, I like the case that you're making, Frosty. Got to get up early to watch it in London, but uh the over 41.5 is yeah, you're hoping each team gets like 21 points basically, 3 touchdowns, something like that. So I don't mind that.
I actually, this isn't one that you picked, but it just popped into my head. Jacksonville -5.5. They have the insane home advantage here because they played in London 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're
So they've
back
been
there
there for
and
the past little bit. New England's making this trip this week. Like Jacksonville's getting a huge advantage here. Like if I'm the Patriots, I'm a little pissed off that this is how the schedule was made because I'm sitting here in what's supposed to be a neutral site game that we're both supposed to have to travel across the ocean for, and this team has been here for 2 weeks, and we just played a game in the States last week. Like it's a little interesting the way they did that, but yeah, it could be something to look at too.
what do you guys actually made this this might be a question for a different podcast, but I mean, what do you guys think about Jacksonville relocating to London?
It makes things way too complicated. I think it messes everything up. You
What do you
just
think about adding expansion teams in
I think it's
London?
the same. it wouldn't be as bad at moving, but you look at this, you have such a simple 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 8 p.m. Teams are travels easy. It makes sense. You're not doing anything crazy. The time zone is the big change. You're moving across the country, across the globe, over the ocean. Like, could you imagine being you're the San Francisco 49ers. You're playing in California, and you have to travel all the way over to the not just to like New York across the states, then to go across the ocean to play in London.
Just go the other way. That was a joke.
I know, but yeah, like I don't like it for the. I think you get backlash from the players who already spend enough time away from their families during this time, and now you're supposed to be sitting there and telling them, yeah, go spend a week in London, have fun. Like, I think it throws you all out of the loop. These guys are so
The
regimented.
the only way I think you could make it work is if Jackson if they play the team there, the team in London plays like all nine of their home games in the first 9 weeks, and every team that travels there gets their bye week the week after they play them. So they get the travel week to come back, then they get a bye week to travel to America and play all the remaining 9 games, all of their road games. I think that's the only way that it could work.
I agree it is the only way. The problem is you then have teams sitting there with week one buys,
Yeah.
and you have teams sitting there and I think a lot of teams would talk about the
Yeah.
fact that
Okay, well they could be on the road to start.
well, I think either way you look at it and well then the team would have a week 18 buy, which is also out of whack. But you look at it if you're a team that's sitting there and you're bouncing back and forth across the country, going to all your different road and home games back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you see there's one team that's playing all of their home games at once. They don't have to travel at all during an entire 3 months period. Again, I don't see a world where you don't get complaints from the players.
Okay, I cracked it. Goodell, listen in. They're on the road for the first until bye week start,
The
whatever,
vibe.
first 5, 6 weeks. Then they're at home for that middle chunk where every team can get their bye, and then they're back on the road to end the season. Did I just crack the code? We just combined all our answers.
Yeah,
That's not bad. I feel like
I still think
that
you end
could
up with the
work.
problem that players don't want to play in London. I don't know
It
how well.
doesn't matter, buddy.
Yeah,
It's all about the money, and there's money there, especially if you're going to be moving the team out of Jacksonville.
I think I think they're also like the other thing that's gonna be likely if they
You think
start
they care about the players in the
they don't
NFL?
they don't get a
I
shit.
don't know why you keep bringing up the players
That's true.
argument. Who cares?
But it's
If
all you're
you're
gonna do
if
that,
you're
they're
the
gonna bring
NFL,
they'll bring in the 18 game season and just work these guys
yeah,
to the bone.
yeah.
It's I think but again, I think you're gonna start to I think you're gonna end up with a real issue if you do all these sorts of things against the players' wishes. You know, if you make them play in London when they don't want to, if you give them an extra game when they've said that they can't handle the extra game, it's too rough on their bodies. You're gonna end up with a lockout. You're gonna end up in a situation where the players just say no, and the player association just goes, no, we're not doing this anymore. Figure your shit out. Because it's happened in other sports. The NFL's been pretty good without lockouts, but we see it in other sports all the time. So
I don't know. Well, I never had an answer. What do you guys think? You know what? I'll just
yeah.
Frosty, we're riding the tight ends. I'll do the over. I'll do
Yep.
the over.
Yep. Yep. That's the smart pick. I will say, I'm shocked nobody said anything about Eagles -3 against the Giants.
The Giants have been playing tight games. Their defense actually looks pretty good too.
I'm
Like the
scared of
Eagles,
both teams. Both teams.
I,
the
I
Eagles are so much better than them
they
on
should
paper.
be
Are they?
On paper, yeah.
on paper for sure, but coaching wise, give me Brian Dable over Nick
Yeah.
Sirianni all day
Oh,
long.
yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
as someone who was due to fantasy football insanely invested in that Giants Bengals game for no reason because that game was bad. I didn't realize it was bad because I was so locked in on fantasy. Um, you really see that this Giants team has potential with Brian Dable. Daniel Jones is an idiot. He was force feeding Darius Slayton the ball when you had other guys open. He wasn't reading the field well. But Brian Dable got that offense still to work. And that defense is good without Kayvon Thibodeau. Their pass rush is really, really good. The DBs are a little suspect, but the linebackers played really well with Okereke and Micah McFadden had a pretty good game. The safeties, the young safety Tyler Nubin's been pretty good. there's a lot of potential long term for this Giants roster if they get Daniel Jones off the team and send him to London to play for the new Jags. Like
Oh,
that's the point we're at with this Giants team, and I think that their defense can hold this offense in check unless Saquon Barkley decides he wants to have a nuclear revenge game, which I could see.
yeah. And neighbors might be back as well, so that's something
Right, right.
to
Potential.
monitor as well. All right, well, I think that'll do it. Tonight, Broncos Saints. Real quick, who do you get? We got Saints or Broncos? I think I'm Broncos
Broncos.
tonight.
I
I
got
think I gotta
Broncos.
go Broncos because of the injuries to the Saints.
They're just
They're beat
do the
up.
Saints have a full team?
No, they're also their O line's also hurt. They're missing their entire
Yeah,
interior O line. Like this is
like
just so bad for New Orleans.
they're going into this. Spencer Rattler's got like the most experience on their offense right now. Like he's the veteran and he's played one game.
Yeah, like you're looking at Derek Carr's out, Olave's out, Shahid's out, Cesar Ruiz is out, Eric McCoy is out, Shane Lemieux is out, Lucas Patrick's questionable, Ryan Ramchek's out, Pete Werner's out. Like the defense is relatively healthy besides Pete Werner, but they're missing like 8 players on offense. Their O line right now is Talisi Fuaga, Nick Saldiveri, Lucas Patrick, who's questionable, say, Landon Young, and Trevor Penning.
Oh, wait.
It's Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, and then he's gonna be Matt in the hole because there's no one to block for him. But like, and then on Denver's side, PS2 is out, so it's like you can't even feel super confident about Denver's defense. But
It's really brutal. We're sitting here with a game that would have been bad fully healthy, and now they're hurt. It's like, oh my God, at least I wanted to watch PS2 on prime time, man. I would have loved to see PS2 versus Chris Olave prime time matchup just to see them go at it. But nope.
what are you gonna do? Them's the breaks. Hey, them's the breaks. All right, at this point we're just complaining about this is like first world problems at this point. We're just like, oh no, we have to watch a shitty football game
Who am I
tonight,
gonna bet
guys.
on, man? Make some
Yeah,
picks in the parlay.
yeah, pretty much. All right. Well, I think that'll do it. Only one episode this week. We should be back to your regularly scheduled programming next week. But Cody Wiles, Andrew Foster, Logan Glover here on the Backfield Buzz. Like, subscribe. Feel free to check out the channel. We got lots of other NHL coverage on the channel. Maybe some MLB. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to Andrew Foster over there. Maybe he has something in the works for some MLB here. So, yeah, that'll do it from us. Anything else you guys want to say? No?
They
All
can't
right.
come soon enough.
Can't come soon enough. All right. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep it buzzing.